Hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, we're now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because you scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's systems, just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God, I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think they're out, they pull me back in.
The 2019 Mile High affiliate season has officially come to an end, and I am less than thrilled. We have to recap this 2019 season. Thanks for tuning in to the MHA podcast. I'm Eric Lansing along with Mikey Renaud and Todd Diamond. Gentlemen, are you excited to have this season finally over? Yes. That was a big sigh from Todd.
Yeah, I wish it just would kind of continue on because I thought.
What? Continue on? Continue on losing, right?
No.
5 in a row? Is that how you ended the season? You want to keep
Six.
It was six.
Six in a row?
6.
Thanks for.
Sorry, I'm
pointing
not
out.
at that point in my notes yet. We haven't talked about his dismal choke job near the end, but all right. What about you, Mikey? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right now.
Until we get to your part of this story.
We're not getting to my part of the story.
We're getting to your part of the story.
I lost. What else do you want to know?
Well, we're going to talk about how fun that was. So, what's coming up on today's show? I thought we could cram everything into this final show, but there's just too much to talk about. So, on this second to last show, we'll look on this past year. We'll talk about where our teams went wrong, not where we went wrong in terms of like the podcast and our predictions. It's more about where our teams went wrong, and 3 of the 4 at this table went wrong. We'll talk about the playoffs and, of course, all the excitement that came with that. We'll, of course, bring on the 2019 champion to help us kind of relive the postseason. And we'll play a little MHA trivia as well. Yeah. And then on the next show, we'll get into the full details on busts, MVPs, surprises, and we'll do some mock drafting as well. So, no further ado, we bring on our champion, our 2019 champion. He's got the crown. He's got his goblet. And the smug that should come with being a first-time back-to-back champion and first-time.
There's no smug here.
Oh, plenty of smug. I can smell it. It might be just the tequila, but and he is the first to win 4 championships, and that's Aaron Renaud, the owner of Lion Rip. I guess big congratulations and thanks for being on the show.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. I was shining this crown.
Yes, it's very shiny.
There we go. Fitting a king.
Oh, beautiful. Well, we're glad you could take the time out of your busy, fantastic life. I guess we should all, for those who don't know, or I don't know, I know Aaron's not big on Facebook, but I think he posted something that Aaron's been married since the draft, since the end of the season. He also went on a 2-week vacation to Hawaii, and he's having a little child as well. Little Eric is what I'm calling him until they say otherwise. But congratulations on all your many amazing accomplishments and awards. And
Not a bad year.
Not a bad year.
Not a bad year. They say you can't have too many good things at once, but there you go.
You're just reveling in it, just swimming in it.
You got to. When it's good, you got to live it up. So everyone gets the bad times, everyone gets the good times.
There you go. Well deserved.
A lot of good times for Aaron Renaud. All right, so we'll talk more about Aaron, about his playoff run and how it feels and all that stuff. I guess maybe I'll ask you a couple questions here. So, well, we'll get to it afterwards. We'll get to your kind of stuff afterwards. Before we get into some playoff talk, let's quickly kind of recap the regular season. Lion Rip and Kilgore Trout both ended up with 10-3 records. Aaron ended up being the number 1 seed because of the head-to-head win he had over Kilgore during the regular season. Kilgore did finish with the highest point total on the season and did so quite handsomely with 1,916 points. Averaged about 147 points per game. Lion Rip, who was second, had 1,700, a little over 1,700 points. And now it's time for some MHA trivia.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
All right.
I don't know if you guys will get this one. This is going to be a tough one, but it's more informational because I'm sure people were wondering, wow, that's a lot of points scored by Kilgore, but what is it the most ever? So I will ask that first. Was 1,916 points the most points ever in a season?
No.
No?
The odds tell me to say no.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Aaron? You think his big point total this year was the most in MHA history?
I'm going to say no as well.
All right. Well done, gentlemen. You both all that got that right. Anybody want to give me a reason why they don't think it was the most?
I feel like there's been seasons where there's been more dominant teams.
Yeah, and I think too the quarterback situation, the quarterbacks like Peyton and Drew Brees have put up a lot more big point totals that Patrick Mahomes has only done like in a few games per se. So I think that's one of the reasons.
Well, and we also ran 2 quarterback systems.
There you go. That is the biggest reason between the point system today and point system back then is we ran with 2 quarterbacks. So there was a lot of points being scored. From what I could tell, and I tried to go through everything, I had the most points, 2,709 in 2004, and I averaged about 180 points per game that season. But that was in the 2 quarterback league.
What about the one?
I may have deleted it. No. 2013, Mikey had 2,090, the Tamales. So that was the non-quarterback league. That was the previous high, I believe.
2013. Was that a winning season?
I'm sure it was.
No, it was not. No, it was not.
Well, I'm saying
Like
it was a
winning record, but not
Oh.
championship. Yes.
Yes, because we are.
So, and just another thing to think about, for the first 4 years in our league, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, we also went to 15 weeks, if you guys remember that, where we were also playing week 17.
yeah, that's a fair
so that was
reason.
another extra week that we ended up piling up points. And then in 2006, we went from 14 weeks. So
So considering with Kilgore, that's an accomplishment.
that's still really impressive. So finishing with the standings, Todd was or at least going into the playoffs. Todd was third with his 8-5 record. Then it was Eaton W's, Gonzo Cats, and bye week, rounding out the 6 playoff teams. They all had 7-6 records. And let's see. So before we get into that was kind of like the regular season. So let's talk about some of your guys' thoughts on the regular season. A lot of things to touch on. We'll talk about busts. And if you guys bring up a bust, that's fine. We just won't talk about it on the next show. But what were some things that kind of stood out to you through the regular season? It could be anything. Big performances. Wins or losses that you had by 1 or 2 points. So many different things you could talk about. What stands out to you? It could be anything during the regular season, not the playoffs.
It was just outlier performances. Like, I mean, Christian McCaffrey in the season that he had, Michael Thomas the season he had, Lamar Jackson the season that he had. Going through my research, I took a look. Christian McCaffrey had, over 400 points for the season, which that's only the 5th time that's ever happened.
In our league,
In
is what
our
you're saying, in
league.
our point system?
In our league, it's only the 5th time that has ever happened. For a running back.
Interesting. So a little MHA trivia. Who's the number 1? Do you have that number?
I do. You guys have any guesses?
I want to say, was Sean Alexander?
No.
Because didn't he have
Oh,
the
wow.
single season touchdown record?
He does, but he never got to 400 fantasy points.
But he never really caught passes.
That's right.
LT.
And LT did it twice.
Yeah.
Dame?
Over 400?
Over 400 twice, 2003 and 2006.
What about Marshall Falk?
Marshall Falk did it once, but our league wasn't around back in 2000 when he did
Okay.
it.
All right. Goodness.
Now, the other 2 times were done by the same guy.
Wow.
2002 and 2003 did it back to back.
Portis?
No.
We caught a lot of passes too, though. Maybe didn't have the touchdowns. 2002 and 2003.
Yeah.
400 points.
409, 412. The totals.
Who am I not thinking of? Is he a Hall of Famer?
No,
Not a Hall of Famer.
not a Hall of Famer.
Interesting.
I am at a loss for words.
It's got it. So I'm thinking who's around. Edgerrin James?
No, it was not.
That's
Edgerrin
not a bad
James.
guess, though, Todd. That's
Yeah,
not a bad guess.
guess. Now, this guy, his career was cut short, I would say, due to injury, and that's probably the reason why he's not considered for Hall of Fame. But when he was good, boy.
Who's the team?
Kansas City
Oh,
Priest Holmes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's-
Priest Holmes. Yeah, okay. I can see that.
did it twice.
Wow.
I was gonna say Larry Johnson.
He was around at that same point, but
Yeah.
Priest Holmes had some
Yeah,
amazing
he's-
seasons.
Yeah, so, and get this, McCaffrey had 403 touches during the season, never fumbled once.
That's impressive.
And as bad as that Panthers team was this year too.
Well, I think that just helps.
Yeah.
They relied on him so heavily.
So I mean, that was impressive. Michael Thomas, reached 280 points, and again, was only the fifth guy to do that in the history of our league.
So five other guys, or he's the
Four.
fifth, so four other guys.
Four other guys did that.
It's Marvin Harrison, Reggie
Marvin
Wayne.
Harrison's one of them. 02.
Did I say Reggie Wayne?
Reggie Wayne is not
No.
one of them.
Odell in any of his 3 big seasons?
No.
Wow.
Chad Johnson.
Nope.
TJ Hushmanzada.
There we go.
Compare
I just
Michael
wanted
Thomas to
I just want to say
OJ
Hushmanzada.
Cinco.
Des Bryant?
No. One guy did it twice, back-to-back years, 14 and 15.
Oh, Megatron.
No. Megatron never did it.
Oh, Andre Johnson.
No.
Larry
Not
Fitzgerald.
Andre?
No.
Wow. I
Never
thought for
did it.
sure Andre Johnson.
No.
And not Megatron?
Not Megatron. Never did it.
Is it 14 and 15?
14, 15.
What kind of numbers?
Not Dez.
I said Des Bryant,
No.
but I
Give
don't
you
think
a
you ever
clue.
got to that.
The guy was drafted this year, and he was on somebody's team for a while. So may have ended on the team, but he only played like 1 or 2 weeks this year.
Was it? It's not the Redskins wide receiver, the rookie, that Terry.
Well, no, he's
Cook.
saying as someone
No.
drafted in our league.
Oh, in our league.
Yeah.
Because,
no,
I mean, that would make sense if the guy was a rookie and did 2 amazing seasons.
no, this guy was on 2 different teams
Okay.
before he was
Brandon Marshall?
released.
No.
No.
No, not this year. I didn't draft him this year, Aaron.
Yeah.
I didn't draft him this year.
I assume he's going to be on the roster
Yeah,
for next
yeah.
year.
God, I figured it would have come up. It's
Why not?
Antonio Brown.
Oh, duh.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
duh.
Okay. I was gonna
Interesting.
say maybe Keenan Allen, but Antonio.
No, he never had that many touchdowns.
I think Antonio Brown's dead to all of us now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the other guy did it in 07, and this I figured would have been easy for you. I mean, what happened in the 07 season that
Oh, Randy Moss.
Yeah, Randy Moss.
okay.
was-
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So yeah,
Well, there you go.
Pretty historic
So,
territory.
in essence, what we're saying is, like, Chris McCaffrey's season was so good. Michael Thomas' season was so good. And who was the third guy? Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson.
Now, I mean,
Lamar Jackson.
now that'll be interesting. Let's just get into him now. I mean, he was obviously traded by Dylan, who thought he was good with Stafford, and I forget who the other quarterback was. I'm sure I'll look on the list up
Rivers.
here. Rivers. But ended up trading him. Now, was he was the number 1 quarterback, right?
Correct.
But in terms of points per game, Patrick Mahomes probably had some more. He was injured in a couple games, and just looking at their numbers, like I saw more 60-point games from Patrick Mahomes than I did see from Lamar Jackson.
No, the actual leader in points per game was Drew Brees,
Okay,
which is
interesting.
pretty good.
Yeah, not bad considering he didn't even finish in the top 5.
And he missed a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he missed some. So there you go.
Kind of a bounce back. But what I wanted to let you guys know about Lamar Jackson, he finished QB1. Our league is a point per completion league.
And
Lamar
he's not a
Jackson finished 27th in completions. Finished
but those
QB1.
rushing points, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those rushing points really piled up.
Yeah, 27th in completions, 26th in attempts, 22nd in passing yards.
Wow.
But he was number 1 in passing touchdowns with 36.
Right.
And then he had 162 of his points from rushing, which if you put him with the other running backs in the league, he would have finished similarly to Marlon Mack and Philip Lindsay.
That's insane. We'll definitely go into a lot deeper when we talk about all the players kind of specifically, and where they finished and all that fun stuff. But it's amazing just thinking about, like, I think when CUP won, he had Cam Newton. When he had 10 rushing touchdowns and like 600 or 700 yards rushing, and that really propelled him. So if you find a guy that's why I think we all kind of stay away from quarterbacks that don't get a lot of completions. But if they can run the ball that well, I mean, is it an outlier? Is he going to do it again? We'll talk more about it in the next show. Right, it is a gamble.
How many guys are going to rush for 1,200 yards?
Oh, yeah.
Someone-
It's the most ever in history. And the last person that did over 1,000 was Vic, right? So it's one of those things you take a chance, hope you don't get hurt. That's just the reason to get backup quarterbacks and so forth. All right, so what about you, Aaron? Or what Todd, you can go ahead. What else kind of stood out to you this
I
year?
mean, Alvin Kamara not having his typical kind of season, finishing 10th in our league. Usually he's in the top 5 because he runs and catches. But obviously the way the Saints were, with Drew Brees being out and Teddy Bridgewater really not having, Kamara not having his typical season because obviously Michael Thomas was kind of a big focal point. Another one too, and I think he might drop next year, is Todd Gurley. I mean, not finishing up in the top 10. Now, obviously, they said at the beginning of the season they were gonna kind of watch his workload a little bit because they wanted to save him for the playoffs. But I think Todd Gurley, going into next year, might actually drop into the second round. I just because I know we say running backs are not a dime a dozen, but I just think Todd Gurley and the way that offense is going, he might actually drop. And then Mark Ingram, it's a very interesting one. He,
We really have to talk about Mark Ingram.
Yeah. I mean, obviously 208.
Because I was really wrong about Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
For sure.
218 points in our league, and obviously, going from Drew Brees to Lamar Jackson, not knowing how good Lamar Jackson was going to be, and I think he definitely surprised a lot of people. And then say this for my part, David Johnson. I mean,
he's definitely a bust of the year candidate.
Yes.
What the hell were you thinking?
Aaron, you're absolutely right. I mean, you have the championship. I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, it was a combination of him being injured and the offense changing too. Because obviously, and I think this is his. I think he might ask to go somewhere else, which actually might be good for him because if they're going to be changing that offense a little bit, even though I think David Johnson's a lot better than Chase Edmonds and Kenron Drake or whatever, I think you'd want to stick with him. But that was probably because people were high on David Johnson too, because obviously the way coming back from, the way from previous years, the way he was performing, obviously, the wrist injury thing. Okay, that's that he'll be right back to where he was, and he wasn't. So that was a moment right there. Obviously, I was winning despite him putting up a couple goose eggs.
At least for a while.
Yeah, okay.
For a bit. For a little while.
Yeah, so Aaron, did anything stand out to you this fantasy season? Was there any performances that stood out? What do you think about when you look back on this 2019 regular season?
I can only refer to myself, and the hot start Cooper Kupp got out to.
Yeah.
I think propelled my team in a couple situations where maybe things weren't going so well. I think he went out to a hot start, kind of teetered down toward the end of the year, but still got me what I needed. I think Lamar Jackson was surprised on my end too. I think
we all kind of scoffed when Dylan kind of drafted. Like, what were you thinking? Like, it's one thing to get him as a backup because we knew the potential, but he drafted him as a starting, right?
Well, and I remember saying that
Rivers.
I thought he would rush for 1,000 yards, but there was no way I thought he would have 43 combined touchdowns.
Yeah. 36, leading the league, by the way. Like, as you mentioned, that's a crazy number for a guy that runs the ball. But that offense was pretty tremendous to watch this year.
Yeah, I think another what I'm looking at, like the resurgence of Dalvin Cook this year was kind of a big thing. I mean, he really kind of took off. I don't know if we need to go into Derrick Henry and talk about that one.
Well, we'll probably talk more about Derrick Henry next week for sure because he had a pretty tremendous season.
Yeah,
Really?
But yeah. Oh, you still going to doubt it? Injuries, just kind of looking at my end, was a big factor. You talk about how Big Ben screwed everything up in Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh has been known the last few years throwing the ball more than anybody. A lot of people were high on Juju. People were high on James Conner. Maybe even the defense probably struggled a little bit as the team kind of struggled. And so that was pretty.
I mean, not to interrupt you on
Sure,
that completely,
no.
but it just kind of triggered my mind. I mean, Tampa Bay becoming such a a passing juggernaut as far as their offense goes.
Yeah, they threw a lot of pick sixes and interceptions, but I mean, Jameis Winston finished second.
Heavy volume.
I think second, for sure.
To
And so
the point where it became predictable at the end of the year that you knew that you could just plug in somebody from Tampa Bay.
Well, yeah,
and get
Mike Evans
anything
did
out of it.
great. Goodwin was good
Yeah.
too, and then the guy you picked up at the end of the year too.
Perriman. Yeah.
Brett Perriman. So
That
not
was-
Brett Perriman, but
I got to pat myself on the back for that because
You did mention.
that was something I predicted with the Bruce Arian offense coming in. That his track record shows he's top 10 all the time.
yeah. So I thought injuries because you talk about Adam Thielen, who was a top 5 wide receiver. He ended up getting hurt. And then we kind of saw some injuries elsewhere. We talk about Kerryon Johnson, who was drafted in the beginning or the end of the 3rd round. And man, oh man, it just seemed. I mean, talk about AJ Green, a guy that I picked up to take a chance on. He never played a minute in the league. So injuries played a huge factor. Also, you talk about change of offense for Packers. Mm-hmm. You know, my big hubbub about Aaron Rodgers going to be an MVP quarterback. He wasn't bad. But, I mean, I don't think – I was expecting more close to 40 touchdowns. But they ran the ball. They played decent defense and didn't have to make Aaron Rodgers throw 500 times. And
Somebody predicted that, I think.
Yes. Sure, yes. Mikey was right. The coordinator, the new coach, changed the system. So I thought that was interesting as well. The only last thing I'll say the regular season is I was looking back and do you guys know who had the most points in a game this year by an owner?
It's Cougar, right?
Yeah, very good.
199.
Yeah, he had 199 points.
Yeah, you almost hit the.
And he did it against Allen, and Allen who only had 2 wins all season. He ended up being 199 to 163, the most points that that Allen had all season, and he ended up losing that. So it was not a good season.
Hey, Allen will have a better year next year. He gets that first pick in Christian McCaffrey.
That is if there's ever been a sure thing to get for the first round. I mean, maybe during the Peyton Manning days, you knew Peyton Manning was going to go first. Christian McCaffrey is going to go first for sure.
Solid start.
During that day, I'll just kind of go back to it with Kilgore Trout. He had 59 from Mahomes, 35 from Mike Evans, 31 from Kamara, 21 from Hooper. Russell Wilson for Belt Sanders had 77 points and had 23 from the Bears defense. And I think that just kind of foreshadowed the rest of the season. Kilgore would go 3-0 after that. He would end up starting 5-0, and he only lost twice. He never lost twice in a row all season. The Belt Sanders, after that loss to Kilgore, 0-3. He started 0-5. He won in week 6 and 7, but that was it. So tough kind of day. And there were some other performances I'll just quickly throw out. Christian Kirk, remember when he had 30 points and 3 touchdowns in a weekend? Derrick Henry had 32 points versus Kansas City in week 10, where he had I think 3 touchdowns in that one. Will Fuller, remember in his big and only game of the year? 42 points, 14 receptions, 217, and 3 touchdowns. He was immediately traded after that week to the Butterfingers. You remember this? And then the next week, they traded for so he traded Will Fuller for Will Dissly.
Yeah.
Fuller had 33 points in the next 6 games combined after scoring 42 in one game. And there was with 4 games not even being played because he was hurt. Dissly didn't score a point again for the rest of the year.
Because he got hurt.
Hey, while you're going over those, let's not forget the piece of crap Sammy Watkins either, because he had the first week where he scored 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards
I almost
receiving.
almost brought it up.
He didn't score a touchdown the rest of the season and never had over 60 yards the rest of the year.
And he has Patrick Mahomes connected to him. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Wasn't that the
He looked really good that first week, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He looked
And you
like,
started him and you won, right?
No, I didn't start him.
Oh,
I did
you
win.
didn't start him.
I did
That's
win,
right.
but I didn't start him.
Well, I'm sorry, Mikey. What do you
Will
want from me?
Dissly got hurt though. That's the reason.
Well,
too.
yeah, but my statement's not incorrect.
I just wanted to crap.
Why not?
I just wanted to crap on him. That's all.
Crapping on Sammy Watkins. I like it. All right, so before we talk playoffs, we'll talk about what went wrong for me because my team was so bad that I might as well just get it in now. So everything went wrong. It started with the draft. I don't know. This is a bad draft. Adams was injured. He had a couple okay weeks, but Devontae Adams, who had 10+ touchdowns in 3 straight years.
Turf toe is a B, man.
Yep, and then obviously we mentioned the Steelers, and James Conner was a big bust. Zach Ertz was not a top 3 tight end this season.
There's a reason for that. Though.
Sure, Dallas Goedert came in and stole a bunch from
And
him.
the receivers were all hurt, and he was facing double coverage all year. It's tough.
Well, Chris Carson was my best pick of the year. He was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
AJ Green never played. Tyler Boyd had good and bad weeks, but he played a really bad team.
Dalton got benched, and he didn't exist anymore.
That's right. Big Ben got hurt, so I never really got off the floor. I made a couple moves. I thought Kyler Murray would come in and do some things. Christian Kirk, James White. Started 0-4, lost my first 6 or 7 games. It was really bad. I got a couple wins. I got close, but had some pretty spectacular performances to even get a couple of those wins. Against Mike, you had Philly's D, that 37 points. And then I had Tevin Coleman, who had 3 or 4 touchdowns for 36 points.
Your depth hurt you, too. I mean, Dante Moncrief was terrible. Then he got cut.
Mike Davis didn't do anything.
Geronimo
Justin
Allison
Jackson
was terrible.
Damian Harris never did anything. Jamal Williams actually did all right for me. Giovanni Bernard.
Whatever happened to Tariq Cohen?
Yeah, that team's offense struggled this year with Trubisky was really bad, and so they actually went more kind of Anthony Miller route than Tariq Cohen route. So, yep, that's my team. Stunk to high heaven. Glad to move on. We'll be back to the Lemonheads team name next season. And so, all right. So one last thing before we get into the playoffs. Mikey was on the verge of making the playoffs and kind of missed out. You felt confident, though, right, going into Monday night? You want to kind of explain? Don't give me that look. I just said how terrible my team was. Talk about how close it was.
Look, I was not confident going into Monday night. I will tell you.
Really?
No.
Come on, Mikey.
I am, when it comes to stuff like that, I am so nervous and negative when it comes to that because I needed 20 points to win the game. And while that doesn't seem like a lot, I had 2 guys that meant, 10 from each, something like that would get me in.
But you had really good players too. It's not like you had
True.
scrub, tight end,
True.
or a kicker. You
True.
had
I had
your second round pick.
Dalvin Cook and Stephon Diggs. So like I got 12 points on that first drive. Dalvin Cook scored a touchdown. So after that first drive of the game, I was like, okay, 12 points. All I need is 8 the rest of the way.
Right.
And you don't even need big plays out of him either. You just need a couple receptions or.
And just for the record, he's playing Aaron Lion Rip, who
Right.
also needed to win to try to get
The first
round bye. And so it was not like he was just playing Aaron. Aaron didn't care. Aaron had to make sure he won too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so, coming down the stretch at the end of that first half, I can remember it clear as day. Dalvin Cook caught a pass, and he kind of tweaked. He landed on his shoulder. You could tell it was bothering him. He stayed in the game, and at halftime, the game was tied. I got the 19 points that I needed to tie the game in the first half. So I was like, oh, man, this is easy street.
I assumed I was going to lose at that point.
I got 2 guys, going into the second half. All I need is, a point, and I'm in. Boom. Easy. First play of the second half. Very first play. Run up the middle with Dalvin Cook. Lands on that same shoulder. Injures himself. Fumbles the ball on top of it.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
Which, puts me back down 3. And not only that, Diggs gets hurt on the same play. So at that point, I'm just like, I don't know what to think. I see Cook going off into the locker room. I know it's the second time he's landed on that shoulder. So in my head, I had a very good feeling he wasn't coming back. Diggs came back on the next drive. So I'm like, okay, 3 points. We got an entire half here. That's fine. He could pick up 3 points. That's easy, especially because this game turned into a shootout. There was 40 combined points in that second half.
Yeah.
40. And
I wasn't worried about Diggs.
Laquan Treadwell scored a touchdown.
right. Diggs dropped 2 passes. Wide open. Dropped 2 passes in that second half. He was laughing. It was just making me angry. I just, he didn't score 1 point in that whole second half, in which, in a shootout. Not 1 point. And I lost. I was beside myself. I couldn't.
And that loss kept Mikey from getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it affected so much. It just. I don't know what to think.
The fantasy football gods, Mikey, they show no mercy. They show no mercy.
It seems like it's always going to.
I say that will be done.
Change.
I will be done.
That changed the course of history, my friends.
Did it? Explain.
Had I got in, I would have played Kevin, and I would have beaten him. Then I would have played Aaron, and I would have beaten him too.
But you would have lost to Kilgore.
I would have lost to Kilgore.
And we would all be a little happier today.
It's fun to think about these alternate realities, but let's think about the one we're in.
So unfortunately, it's a tough break. I'm sorry. It sucked. All right.
It was rough. I felt bad for you. I really did. But now that I know that it needed to happen for me to win,
Look,
I could care less.
Here was the other thing you got to understand about that, okay? Because this started on Thanksgiving night, okay?
All right. Explain.
As, Aaron had Matt Ryan that night with the Falcons. They were playing the Saints.
And he wasn't doing very well.
No, he was having a terrible game. He just awful.
But did that all year, though.
But then
He was garbage time king this year.
in the last,
that makes a big
In the
difference.
last 6 minutes of that fourth quarter, and this is what I said, it was meant for him to be champion. Of
course it was.
Not only the whole Dalvin Cook thing, but Matt Ryan scored 24 points in that last 6 minutes of that fourth quarter.
24 points. Yeah.
There was 2 onside kicks that the Falcons recovered, which is just inconceivable.
And I don't know what the percentage is, but it's less than
It's very low.
5%.
Here, let me tell you. Let me
To
tell
get
you,
an onside
because
kick.
I
Has
went
it?
and looked this up.
Okay.
There was 60 onside kick attempts in the NFL this year. 8 of them were recovered by the opposing team. 8 of them out of 60.
You mean recovered by the team that kicked it?
Right.
Okay.
Only 8.
And 2 of them
And 2
came
of
in
them
in the last 2
had
minutes.
that night consecutively.
And they
Oh,
happened
man.
just by the Falcons by themselves.
Right.
Jesus.
And more garbage points for Aaron. How did the Melvin Gordon trade affect things? You guys made a switch. You had Melvin Gordon. He didn't play for the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you guys ended up trading him to Aaron for Carson Wentz from Aaron. That you ended up Carson
Right.
Wentz. Aaron had Melvin Gordon. How did that play a factor in
If
anything?
you strictly look at the numbers, it's pretty even.
Which
Because
is not a good thing, right? Because a quarterback should be having a lot more points than a running back.
here's the point totals. I mean, they both kind of did the same thing, honestly. Gordon and Wentz kind of sucked it up like right after the trade was made for the first couple of weeks.
No, yeah, it wasn't good.
Which hurt me because I was playing Wentz
Right.
and he would put up 24, 32, and 42, and then 33. After that, 58, 56,
he kinda turned it
56,
on
and
at the end.
51. Tore it up. You know, Gordon had 5, 9, and 11 the first 3 weeks with Aaron, then 24, 18, 10, 11, 17. Had 20 in your Super Bowl.
Yeah. But I
So,
mean, he was a touchdown dependent gamble the whole way. But
yeah,
he's better than what I was working with.
for me, it was a little bit of me freaking out a little bit just because I had been shuffling around quarterbacks all season long. Nothing was working. And there was no way that I could have known that the second half of the season that Jameis Winston was going to catch fire at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have made the trade.
Sure.
But he wasn't. He wasn't very good at
Yeah.
to start the season. So
Kinda
I
the
felt
ebbs
like
and
I had
flow,
to.
yeah.
I felt like I had to make a move. That move helped him out.
All right.
It certainly did. Can I state something, though?
Oh,
Is that the only reason I drafted Carson Wentz is because I knew Mikey was high on him.
And knew he was going to use him for trade bait later. And you mentioned that early in the season, I think, too. So
Yeah.
ended up working
Well,
out
and
that
yeah,
way.
and the trade didn't hurt me from the perspective that I didn't have somebody to replace him because Kareem Hunt did fine.
Yeah, he was good, like 10 per game.
It hurt me that it helped him. That's
Right.
the difference.
All
yeah,
right.
Melvin was okay.
So
He was good when he needed to be.
before we get into playoff talk, you want to talk about your team? I mean,
No.
well, you can mention something. Like, I mean, obviously, you took some chances drafting Melvin Gordon. Andrew Luck obviously hurt you in the end. We had that draft before that took place. But, I mean, you still had a pretty successful season, just missing out barely. So,
Yeah, my receivers were the worst in the league, bar none.
Really?
yeah,
about
Fitzgerald,
it.
Samuel, kind of guys. Even I was high on, didn't do much. Watkins, Stephon Diggs he'd have a 25-point week and then 2 or 3. Even with Thielen out, I thought for sure he would kind of take it to that next step. But
Yeah,
go ahead, you talk.
I was looking at statistics and the percentage of the times that the receivers and the running backs, when you played them, how often they reached double digits, and I was the best when it came to running backs. My running backs, hit double digits 79% of the time, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
That's great. Can't ask for
Incredible.
more than that, really.
But I was so bad with my receivers. 31% of the time they reach double figures. It's disgusting. You could compare that with Aaron's receivers who
No,
he
they
won the
carried me.
championship.
They totally carried me.
Aaron's receivers basically hit double digits 70% of the time.
It was automatic. At least I felt like it was.
Yeah, it's just I mean it defeated my team.
Yeah.
But I knew that coming out of the draft. You asked me
No,
what
you're-
my issue was. It was receivers.
The team looked extremely formidable. But, yeah, I mean, with Stephon Diggs,
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins tends to key in on, like, one guy. And if it's not Diggs that night, he's not going to see the ball.
But Mikey, haven't you mentioned before? You always talk about like go heavy on running backs and then just hope some of your wide receivers. Not using the analogy we use for tight ends that stick to the wall, but
And
like,
honestly, it's correct. But you have to be average at least.
okay,
But if you're bad, you can't survive it.
then you can't survive. Okay, whether or not your
you may
running
be able to
backs.
survive it bad. My team was awful
Right.
when it came to that. So
So if your running backs are putting up big point totals, but your wide receivers aren't even average, putting up average
right
point.
when they're putting up 4s and 5s,
Yeah. Okay.
No, you don't have a chance.
Okay.
So we'll kind of move on to the playoffs here. I'm going to go through these kind of quick, and then those who are involved can talk about it. In the playoffs, Kevin's team, Eaton W's, versus Pollen's team, Gonzo Cats, in the 4-5 matchup. Very close matchup. Eaton W's was down by 7 with a kicker and Jake Elliott to go on Monday night. But Elliott only managed 5 points, which included missing a 47-yard field goal that would have moved Kevin to the next round. But unfortunately, that did not happen. The other quarterfinal was, of course, our buddy here, Todd Diamond. He
Todd
lost
Diamond.
119 to 107 to bye week, and that's Miles. The biggest thing, I'll let Todd talk in a second, but I got to say that starting Tom Brady over Garoppolo, obviously, hindsight, but I think we all knew. Jimmy Garoppolo had 61 points. Brady had 31. The last thing I'll say before Todd can go off he can talk about the playoffs, he can talk about your team, but Brady, after week 8, and that's when your winning streak came to an end and the losing streak started, averaged 38 points per game per week after that week 8, but ended up starting 8-0, got into the playoffs, but that was a quick playoff. So talk about the playoff game first if
Yeah.
you want to look back on that, and then you can talk about.
I mean, the biggest thing obviously was the Tom Brady, Jimmy G, either starting one of the, starting, Brady over Garoppolo, but again, it's hard. It's Tom Brady. I mean, I know at least if I could have got 30 or 40 points out of him, okay with that.
You got 31 points out.
Yeah,
That's not what
but
you want out of a quarterback.
That's true, but it was the rest of my team because I'll say the David Johnson situation, like we talked about before, that was my first round draft pick, and he just, again, whether it was the injuries or just the change of the offense, that really just changed the tide. I'll say, Josh Gordon, obviously I got one good week out of him, and then he just, he decided drugs are more important than football. So that was the end of that. Positives, Tyreek Hill, he was hurt for most of the season, but when he came back, he was right to the old Tyreek Hill, and and then Aaron Jones, he was like my most consistent running back.
Your MVP.
Yeah, the game against the Cowboys, 4 touchdowns.
Someone I was right about, just for the record.
There you go.
Well, if you take a
Go
look at this, we can go as high as round 4. I don't know, round 5, and pretty much all these guys except for Tom Brady were useless.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd, if you have the whole set of silverware, he maybe had a fork here and there, but for the most part was trying to work with butter knives.
Exactly. So even the LaShawn McCoy thing when
Except
he
for
got
Benny Snell, huh?
Yeah, but I know Benny Snell. LaShawn McCoy, obviously when he got picked up by Kansas City, he had a few good weeks for me as well. But obviously, besides Aaron Jones, probably say my MVP was Patriots defense.
Absolutely.
That was my.
And look at the value.
15th round. I know we talk about on these podcasts all the time. Don't pick a defense early. I didn't pick a defense early, and the Patriots were the number 1 defense in our league.
Your reliance on them in general, though, kind of really just killed you. Like
Yeah.
like Eric said, so Brady averaged 38 points after your 8 wins. So and then I kind of looked at this. So your first 8 weeks, all wins. Brady averaged 46.5 points a game. The defense averaged 22.8 points
That's
per
an
game,
absurd number.
which is absurd.
Yeah.
There was no way they could keep that up after that soft schedule. Their differential in those last 6 games you lost is what really killed you. They went from 22.8 to 7.4 in those last 6 games.
Definitely that game against Baltimore definitely was that showed their weaknesses for sure. Lamar Jackson just ran up, right in the faces. But
you lost 23, 24 points a game. Just how bad both of those two were playing.
yeah. But again, it was more of I don't know, riding out because you said where was I going to find it? Obviously I know streaming defenses, but whether or not I couldn't, I didn't want to go away from the Patriots defense, okay, they'll get back on track. But ultimately, yeah, were there definitely a few mistakes that I made that I know my teams over the years, very, very loyal. Like I ride these guys to the end of time.
To a fault.
To a fault, exactly. So it just wasn't, again, if the championship game was in week 8, hey,
It would have been a smart bet not to see New England's defense as your bread and butter, but see it as an opportunity that they saved your team for a while for you to make other
just to get
moves to fix it for the future.
They kind of, I put it this way,
Hindsight's 2020.
Now we can say 20. I guess, Aaron, I think you're right. I guess to some
I'm
sense.
sorry, it's not great.
That's not bad either, though. Honestly, it took me a second to catch that, but nice job.
The Patriots got me to that 8-0 record, so then maybe learning moment.
That was your gift.
I just
that was your
I
gift.
thought it was always amusing because your solution to losing a Patriot was to get a Patriot. Josh Gordon's out. Let's get Philip Dorsett. Philip Dorsett's out. Let's pick up Jacoby Myers or whatever. It wasn't going to work.
Hey, that waiver wire gets pretty disgusting after after a few weeks. But like I said, ultimately,
Just do what I do. Pick up everybody else's garbage.
Yeah, but I'll ultimately say it was the David Johnson, because that was my first round draft pick, and that was supposed to be the one that was going to lead, my team. And he just, injuries and and just getting benched. I think that's where I ultimately see, because scrambling for running backs, and then it started affecting my wide receivers, and so forth. So I think that's where ultimately I see.
I'm just glad you took my advice and picked up Andrews after that first week.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna. That was my last. Mark.
Gotta stop giving people advice.
I know. Yeah, Mark Andrews, who finished
Mike
second.
could only take his own.
Exactly. Who finished second in our league in tight ends. Obviously great. Obviously being attached to Lamar Jackson definitely helps. So, Mikey, thank you for that one. But obviously, I originally picked Kyle Rudolph, and that
Todd.
That lasted about a week.
Cutthroat league.
I don't even remember what the conversation was. He was going to pick up some other tight end, and I said, "Why would you pick up that guy? Pick up Andrews." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
And then Mark Andrews ended up being, one of the best tight ends this year in fantasy. So, everything might get that. But like I said, ultimately, the David Johnson pick is the one I think that.
You usually can't win if you blow your first round pick.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
I will say that David
So-
Johnson did have 10 points on your bench that week. As opposed to, so that's not terrible, but obviously it's not what you want from your first round pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing on, so we go to the semifinal week. Kilgore defeat bye week pretty easily, 149-102. Mahomes at 53, Chubb 22, a guy he traded for. He also had 17 from Tyler Higbee. How about that? And now we can talk about Aaron, his semifinal matchup against Gonzo Cats. Very close matchup.
Very
Aaron,
close.
not even in the goddamn country. And he's winning fantasy
Hawaii
football.
is part of the country.
Well, I guess that's true. Fine, he's not even in the continental. Well, no, I guess
No,
continental
you're right,
United States. I
yeah.
can say that and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, Aaron's in Hawaii enjoying his honeymoon.
It was rough, I got to tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure it was
a rough
really
place to
rough.
be.
Anyway, Gonzo Cats held a 23-point lead heading into Monday night. And all Aaron had left was Michael Thomas, and that's who you want, right, in your first-round pick.
That's what I told you guys.
And then on the other side, Gonzo Cats still had someone, too, in Marlon Mack. And somehow Aaron came out with the win. You want to talk about kind of what was going on with you and that? And you're in Hawaii. Are you even paying attention?
Well, I think before we even got to the airport, I think that Sunday, there was a certain play in the Dolphins-Giants game where Eli Manning threw this terrible pass. It bounced off two Dolphins players and went to Golden Tate's hands.
Oh, yeah,
scored a
that's right.
touchdown.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And that's kind of how the morning for that Sunday started. And I was like, fuck, it's going to be one of those. Because at that point, you think,
Is it because you had Sterling Shepard and
well, not only
you were just
Sterling
saying that was
Shepard,
going to be weird?
Golden Tate was kind of a flyer at that point. Like the fact that he gets a cheap shot like that right out of the gate.
Oh,
it's
'cause
never
he had-
really.
he had
Golden.
Gonzo. Okay,
he had
I need
Golden
to
Tate
look that up.
going up against Sterling Shepard on mine.
gotcha.
So that kind of gave me a little bit of the morning jitters when I was sipping my coffee, and then things just didn't really go that well for me that week. Lindsey didn't do anything against the Chiefs. They pretty much shut him down because it was snowing, and I was like, this is not looking good. Went to the afternoon. Matt Ryan actually did better than I was expecting against the 49ers.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco. The unfortunate part was all his success went directly into Julio Jones' hands.
31 points from Julio.
Gonzo Cats had as well. So I was like, this is just not going to be my week. And I got on the plane, and I just assumed it was over. And so by the time I get there, and I'm on a way crazy time difference, I think it was a Monday. Yeah, the Monday night game, by the time I checked in the hotel, already started. And I was like, I'm not going to look. I don't really want to know. This is going to be too scary. I'm just going to pretend that I'm going to lose. And I got into the hotel, got on the Wi-Fi, checked my phone, and I couldn't believe it. I was like down by 2 points. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
And this was at halftime.
It was roughly around
I think
halftime.
it was around halftime.
I don't
It was
remember
2 points. It was pretty
how the
close.
points were, but it was like half. I had checked in and right at halftime, hadn't seen the game, and I saw that I was extremely close, and I was like, oh my god! And my wife, Anna's like, what? And I'm like, I might have a chance. She's like, really? You want to watch? I'm like, no,
No.
because
jinx it now.
Because if they came back, I didn't want to see what happened. So like, let's go have dinner, and I'm not going to take a look at my phone as little as possible, and I don't want to see the game at all. We had dinner, and over the course of things, I checked it probably every 15 minutes, and he had a 1-point lead, which I didn't think. I thought there was no way that game was going to like hold on me just having a 1-point lead, but somehow it did. And then I popped open a victory beer, and that was it.
That was it.
And I
Moved
couldn't
on to the
believe it.
championship. Mikey, you're shaking your head.
It's just so unbelievable. Like, I looked at the odds of that because Yahoo likes to post the odds of whether or not
Whether
you
you're going to win. Yeah.
before that game, and it was like 4%.
It was low.
4%.
And
He needed
guaranteed-
Michael Thomas to outscore Marlon Mack, who's a good running back.
It was a guaranteed
24, well, 23 to nothing.
Yeah.
End up doing it 24 to 1.
24-1.
Unreal.
And
1 point victory, 139 to 138.
what got me too was at the end of that game, the Colts, were driving down to score. They get down to like the 3-yard line.
Yep.
Marlon Mack, had been in on the entire drive, didn't really do anything, but they choose to run the ball on like second down. They take him out of the game and put in Jordan Wilkins, who scores
the touchdown.
And that was Jordan Wilkins, who had played in every single game to that point, hadn't scored a touchdown the entire season.
And there you go.
What a better time. What a better opportunity for him to score.
time. So there you go. Aaron sneaks out a 1-point victory. A tie would have favored Aaron nonetheless, but still, it seems insurmountable to come up with that. But he ended up moving on to the championship day, and he took on, no surprise, Kilgore Trout, the top two teams during the regular season. That's kind of what you want to see. That's what we were all.
And
if
I'm honest, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of did too. They were by far the best teams, and so we obviously know Aaron comes out with the win. I guess it was 169 to 130. You're still in Hawaii at this point.
Still in Hawaii. But at this point, I was feeling pretty fearless.
So you get that kind of feeling like,
Well, yeah, once you feel like
I've
you
won
lost.
something I shouldn't have won, and now I just feel.
You just, you don't devil may care.
Yeah.
The gift I got was that Mike Evans got hurt.
That is correct.
I mean,
yes.
that's the giant gift that I got the week before. I saw he got hurt, and I was like, one, I've got waiver priority. I can take his backup out of the mix because Kilgore Trout's going to be suffering for wide receivers, and that's going to give me a distinctive edge. And so that's what I did. Took up Perriman, used it against him, and things worked out pretty well. I was not able to see any of the games. I had a day-long hike up to the Nepali Coast, which is beautiful, by the way.
Thanks.
Check it out if you ever get the chance. And so I had zero cell phone service. I was basically in the jungle, like hiking through mud to see a 300-foot waterfall. And
Is that when you went into the volcano too, or is that a
no,
different day?
that was a different day.
Okay.
But I was in the jungle. No service. So I had no idea what was going to happen, and I just wasn't going to think about it. Got back into town, service picked up, and I had all those touchdown indicators show up on my phone, and I was like, yes.
He had 6 touchdowns between Thomas, Kupp, Lindsey, Gordon, and Kelsey. And there was a point in time, and I remember, Mike, you can chime in because we were watching football, I think. Kamara scored 2 touchdowns. It was like his first touchdown since week 3. You were talking about him not having a great year. It was definitely because of lack of touchdowns. But I think he eventually tied it with 2 Kamara touchdowns. And I was like, okay, he's coming back. And then that afternoon, it's just Gordon. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Lindsey had 100 yards and a touchdown. And I think that hurt him too, is that you had Gordon, he had Eckler. Gordon had the touchdowns. He outscored him 20 to 11.
I felt the whole time that was a tilt. They were in the same game.
Yeah.
Whoever had
28. Excuse me, that was 20 to 8. Eckler had 8 points. Sorry.
whoever was going to get those touchdowns in that game was going to be the one that came out on the other side.
And I applaud him too, because like he had a decision. He traded for Lamar Jackson mid-season, and we could talk about that on the next show. But he ended up going with Patrick Mahomes, the guy he drafted in the third round, and and we thought, well, maybe it's a chance he has his best game, 70 points, makes it interesting. But unfortunately, 8 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown went to Kelsey. And I think me and Mikey said the same thing. After Gordon scored his second touchdown, like, that's got to be it. Unless Gordon has an amazing day without using Kelsey, it's going to be really difficult. And 169 to 130 is the difference, is the final score. And Aaron picks up his 4th trophy and his back-to-back championship.
It's amazing. Waiver priority played a role 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Nick
It always does.
Nick Foles.
Rashad Perriman.
Pay attention to the waiver wire.
And Perriman had 12 points.
It always does.
And the guy, I don't know who his backup would have been. I mean, with Eckler as flex, but David Moore? I always get him and DJ. But the guy from Carolina, DJ Moore, 1 point, got injured. If that makes a difference. If you had a Perriman, and who knows who Aaron would have went with. I mean, that's all. Looking back, I mean, he had Emmanuel Sanders at 6 points. Shepard actually had 15. He could have played him against Washington. That probably would have been a good one anyway.
I did a lot of research to make sure Perriman was going to be
that guy. Because I think Godwin was also kind of hurt, or at least not 100% too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But either way, Aaron made sure he didn't make it closer. And there you
Correct.
go. So how do you feel?
I feel great.
Yeah?
I spoke early on in the year about what I wanted for myself, and it came true.
Yes.
I feel like a
He
complete.
said, I wanted a wife, I wanted a kid, I wanted a Hawaii vacation, and I want a championship. And he got the
I
fourplex.
spoke it into existence. I feel like an asshole bragging about vacation.
That's what fantasy football's about, though.
While
Yeah.
winning, but hey,
Yeah.
what can you do?
He should
great.
have just such an appreciation for this win, though, because it's like, how many times did you think that you were gonna,
Many
like I
times.
pointed out, it's like, how many times do you think you're gonna lose?
There was a lot
like
of there was a lot of near
these
misses.
Yeah.
things had to happen in order for.
I wanted to point one more else out that forced Mikey, not necessarily forced him, but convinced him to make that trade with me, was the surprise retirement of Andrew Luck, which
Yeah.
came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
which
that
put
is
Mikey
true.
in a
I was
situation.
I was willing to wait that out though, and I did
Were
for a
you?
while.
You
I waited until mid-October to make
Oh, he
that
was
trade
done.
because I believed in Jameis Winston and I believed in the Bruce Arians thing. I ended up being right about that eventually, but it
Yeah.
was taking too long and it was killing my season.
But
So
you would have needed another one. You wouldn't have needed another one if Andrew Luck hadn't gone down.
yeah, it's probably true.
But yeah,
But yeah, and
there's a lot of things that went right for me.
The thing I was going to say, too, is that during my heyday of the league, when I obviously been a long
When
time.
was
so
that?
It was a decade ago. Yeah, so my dynasty was that whole decade ago. But anyway, like, you didn't jump out of the gate and start winning champions. It took you a little while.
No, I mean,
You had some good years and you had some really bad years, but then now it's just like you talked about dynasty with me joking the other day. But
I know, and aren't we all looking forward to it?
And that-
the Line Rip Dynasty.
yes, it's,
I think the
hate
important
you like
thing
the
that
Patriots.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to what I didn't know early on was I didn't have a grasp of the way. I don't want to say I could say that I didn't have a grasp of the way the scoring worked. That's an oversimplification, but I didn't have a grasp of the way to play the game that I do now. I have a better grasp of what to look for as far as scoring, and a better grasp of how to play the game, how to play the waiver wire, how to play the trade market, how to draft. I have a better grasp of those things than I did when we first started out. I was just kind of like throwing darts and
Probably picked your favorite,
hoping
like
for
a
the best.
Bronco.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I used to say is like, I don't care about what anybody else is doing, just what I'm doing. And now I'm watching
What everybody else
If
is
I'm
doing.
honest,
And-
I'm watching all of you guys
Yeah.
at all times to see what you're doing. I'm picking your trash up off the waiver wire. I'm seeing who you pick up and why. I've gotten a little bit obsessive about it, but I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah,
you,
sure.
you put the research in to raise the probability, and then there's a little bit
Well,
of luck
and,
on top.
and it's true respect. I got for it's one thing I can say about him and what Kilgore Trout did better than anybody else was really, really working that waiver wire. Aaron never really died on a hill for a player. Like if he thought that a guy was sucking, then Aaron wasn't afraid to drop him, go get someone
Yeah,
else.
Ty Johnson.
Whereas me, if I had a guy highly rated, I would sit on it and wait on it in a while, and it would end up killing me.
Sure.
Yeah, because I did the same thing with Alexander Madsen or whatever. Because I thought, oh, this Dalvin Cook getting hurt, that's every single year. Thinking, oh, this will be great. It never happened, and he ended up.
It happened too late.
Yeah, it happened too late. Yeah,
It happened near the playoffs, and then even Madison was hurt at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, Kilgore was quick to jump on DJ Chark. I mean, that was
Yeah.
I mean,
He
stuff
was
like that
So good.
seems so little at the time, but it's
Yeah, and I mean it's good, and then it's luck too.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we all figure like guys are going to pan out when we pick them up, or we need someone for this week, and they just end up producing more for you than maybe just the 1 week or 2 weeks. They end up being a top. I mean, AJ Brown. Geez, where'd that dude come from? Especially in that offense where Ryan Tannehill comes in, and next thing you know, the offense is sputtering and having or not sputtering, but having a good time and putting up
It came out of
points.
nowhere,
So
Yeah.
it's just one of the things you get lucky, but at the same time, if you're on the waiver wire and you're out there looking and trying to do what you can, and I think our league does a pretty good job of that. We had a lot of teams that were in it till the very end, maybe not outside of
I thought it
Belt
was-
Sanders, and I even was in it with like 2 weeks to go.
was pretty
even though-
balanced, I thought, this
yeah,
year.
so it was
thought-
really cool that, and everybody was in it, and everybody was participating. No one really quit. Even talking like with Kevin and Miles this year, they had one of their better seasons, and so I think Kevin had his best season here now in his third or fourth season. So it's cool that everybody's getting into it and having fun with it. We should do a lot more trash talking or whatever, but maybe that's something we kind of do for the future. But so just kind of, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to say. We can talk about it. But here's how the draft order shapes up for next year. And it kind of goes like this. Belt Sanders with his 2-11 record will draft first and probably will draft McCaffrey. Then it's me who will draft second. Ugh, terrible. CUP third, NWA fourth, Cooper Cousins fifth, Tamale sixth, Kevin, Eaton W, 7th. Butterfingers, 8th. Bye week is 9th. Giganzo Cats is 10th. We finished 3rd. Kilgore Trout, the runner-up, at 11th. And Lion Rip, for the 2nd straight year, will be drafting 12th. So there you have
See
it.
if I can make some more magic out of that.
Yeah.
Who you drafted at number 2, Mr. Eric?
Me and Mikey were kind of talking about that before. That's a great question. Who knows? I mean, Barkley didn't have it. We'll talk. We'll get into that next show. Okay. We'll talk more about the
Devontae
busts,
Adams.
and we'll mock draft, and I'll make sure I draft second. Devontae Adams. Whew, unless they fire their coach, that's not going to happen because they made the playoffs. So, any last words? As we mentioned on the next show, we'll go through the MVPs, the biggest busts. We'll talk about some big butts too. Why not? The super surprises. We'll talk about some players that are kind of one and done guys, perhaps, or guys that had terrible seasons, but you shouldn't forget about in 2020. And of course, we'll go mocking the first 2 rounds, and we'll kind of let you know how that goes down. So, anything else?
Yeah, I just
ahead.
want to say I was a little upset I wasn't the first to 4. I wasn't the first to repeat, but if it had to be somebody to do it, at least it's my brother.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah,
It's true, though.
Well deserved.
Out of here.
Well deserved, Todd. I appreciate it.
All
Yeah,
right.
like I said.
The point is next year you guys all have the opportunity to catch up.
Yeah,
This is
so-
true.
And I think that's the best way to look at it.
Aaron's gonna have a child next year, but
Yeah,
at
that
this point,
might take some time
might
away.
take some time away from him
Or
working.
I've been thinking about this. You know, you gotta rock the kid to sleep a lot. There's plenty of time to scroll
There
that
you
phone.
go.
I'm going for 3.
going-
I'm putting it out here right now.
Going for 3.
Say
going
it
for the
and
3
see
feet.
it. You'll do it.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta go for it.
Well, we can say definitely at this table, majority of us have the championships at this table.
This is true.
So
I
that-
still don't feel better about that.
I know. Well, I'm just.
It's been so long.
Eric's are the dustiest.
It's been so freaking long. Let me tell you.
a lot of cobwebs on
All
it.
right, so I dust him off. So for the champ, Aaron Renault, the choker. Times. I didn't have anything for Mikey. I am
Okay.
the chump, though, since I was so bad this year. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.